Hello guys and gals, this is Jeff Davies from Jeff Reviews Anything, and today I'm going to teach you how to take the perfect eBay photos. Now to do this you need a couple things. The first thing you'll need is a DSLR camera or a smartphone that will allow you access to all of the camera functions such as shutter speed, ISO, aperture, etc. The camera I am using is an older Canon T3i, and aside from a slow focusing speed, it works just fine for this type of product photography. And right now I've got the flippy screen out and you can see it's in creative auto. We don't want it in creative auto. What we want it in is shutter priority. We want the shutter speed to be locked in and all the other camera functions to basically auto set or revolve around that. So you'll see that little blue box there on the flippy screen. It says 1/60th of a second. That's pretty much where I set it when I'm taking product photographies. I find that's a good balance between being in a hurry with shaky hands or whatever, even with the image stabilization. Sometimes I get in a hurry and I jerk the shot. 99.9% of the time I get a nice clear shot with that. So now we're going to go through the menus and quickly go through what the settings should be to take these eBay photos. So the first setting we'll look at is the quality of the image, and on this particular camera I set it to maximum quality, and that'll generate about an 18 megabyte picture. Now I know eBay says they only download 7 or something, but I've been downloading these with no problem. The next adjustment I'll make is to the exposure compensation, and this is really the critical one when you're using a nice white background. This is one of the really pro tips, I guess you could say, is to overexpose that photo by approximately 2 f-stops. It'll be slightly different for each camera. You'll need to tweak it a little bit, but 2 f-stops works great for the Canon T3i. ISO, that's just the maximum. You're telling the camera basically what's the max ISO you'll go to. The next most important thing is the aspect ratio. And one thing people may not realize, but eBay photos are a square. They're 1 by 1. So if I shot this in a 16 by 9, what eBay would do is shrink that down to fit into a square, so you would end up with dead space or wasted space on the top and the bottom. So I always shoot in a square, that way I can try to fill up the image as much as possible, and that's what you want to do. You want a small white border along the edges, but you want to try to fill up the whole frame with the image. Here's the basic settings: 1/60th of a second. We've got the ISO on auto. The f-stop doesn't show there, but it will automatically adjust as well, along with the ISO. We've got the exposure compensation at +2. The exposure will still change automatically depending on the light, but it will always have +2 additional exposure compensation on it. So this is the image after you've set those, and one of the things you'll notice is there's 2 vertical bars now. And those vertical bars, this is the way the Canon T3i operates. I don't know if other cameras do, but it doesn't crop the image in live view. What it does is it gives you 2 bars to indicate this is your square. Anything outside of that is not going to be in frame. So remember that, because that caught me a couple times, but you get used to it really fast. So anything you shoot has to be within those 2 vertical bars. Okay, now we'll kind of go through the actual picture taking process or photography process. I'm using an Amazon Basics light box. It's got LED strips along the top, and I also supplement it with a LED floodlight. I have a separate review video on that So you can see what I'm trying to do is get as much of the shoes in frame as possible, leaving a nice little white bar or a white edge around the outside of it. And then I'll start taking individual shots. You can take up to 12 shots in eBay, and I suggest you do it. More is always better. So I'm getting it in frame. A little white border around the sides. Auto-focusing. Snap the shot. This Canon T3i, like I said, it's old and it's slow at focusing. And I like to take a clear shot of each side of the shoe. I don't want any of my buyers to get any surprises. These shoes are in pretty great shape, so I don't need to take any close-ups of any problem areas. These are Allen Edmonds, by the way. And now I'm adjusting these to take a low toe shot to show the wear on the very tips of the toes. And what I'll do is I'll focus on one end of one toe, lock the focus, and then slide it back to the middle. Otherwise, it has a habit of focusing in the middle, and the depth of field will sometimes make it blurry. Now I'm trying to take a close-up of just the tops of the toes to get that detail. And now I'm going to remove the shoe trees and take an overhead shot of the full shoe. Again, these are all things that will help you sell the shoe by showing as much detail as possible. Now I'm taking a close-up of the inside of the heel to show if there's any wear or how bad the wear is. And now I'm taking a close-up of the inside of the shoe, kind of looking towards the toe so they can see the insole. And now what I do is I've got an 18 to 55 millimeter lens, so I'm zooming in to 55 millimeters because I want to take a close-up shot of the sizing and the model number. And it really has to hunt around to get focused on that. Now I'll take another low shot of the backs of the heels because I want to be able to show any wear on the bottom of the heel, or show how much wear there is. That's always an area that wears quickly. And the last shot will be the soles. And again, you can see I'm trying to fill up the frame as much as possible. It's a little tricky trying to film a live screen. But there you go. So now I've taken all 12 of my shots. I can go to the camera roll and quickly skim through them to see if anything looks horrible and possibly needs to be reshot. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're looking at a little 3-inch screen though, but everything generally looks acceptable. And that will be the cover shot. My cover shot is always both shoes at kind of a quarter angle. And there you have it. If you have any significant issues, like with the too white, too dark, you can sometimes fix that in post within the eBay app. If it's just too blurry, there's nothing you can do about that. You'll have to reshoot it or live with it. You can also crop in the eBay app too if you want to do that. But if you're taking your shots the correct way, you won't need to crop. Cropping takes time, and And one other thing with the eBay photos, you want your process to be as quick as possible. Here are the actual photos that I just took. These don't have any post-processing in them. These are straight from the camera. You can see the background is basically pure white. It's disappeared. You can't see any seams. You can't see any of the little dirt and scuffs that were on it. It's just a nice pure white background, which is what eBay recommends is a solid background. You don't want to detract from your article. You want the focus to be on your article, not your kitchen or your bedroom or whatnot. So a nice white background works great. If you've got white shoes, you can switch to a darker background, gray, black, whatever. I would just recommend making it a solid background. If you do use a darker background, you won't need to use the overexposure, or at least maybe not as much. I do occasionally shoot with a darker background when I'm shooting white shoes or whatnot, and I find I don't have to use any additional exposure for that. So that's my process for taking eBay photos. Yours may be different. You may want to use an aperture priority. I've tried that, doesn't really work for me. I found the shutter priorities the best way for me. You know, this is a Canon T3i. Depending on what camera you're using, you may have to tweak the adjustments, the color profile. Maybe the exposure doesn't need 2, maybe it's 1.5 or something like that. So every camera I think is going to be a little bit different. I've got a Canon G5X and it's, you know, it's slightly different too as far as the exposure goes. So like I mentioned earlier, there's this Amazon light box. I love it. It's portable, it's foldable. It folds flat to about 3 inches. I can set it up and take it down in about 30 seconds. I've got a separate review of that if you want to check it out. It's fantastic for product photography, especially shoes, handbags, anything you can really fit in there. I will be doing a part 2 to this eBay photography tutorial, probably in the next couple days, so be on the lookout for that as well. That will cover actually uploading the photos into eBay. I certainly hope this video helped you take your eBay photography up a notch. If you did like this video, please feel free to subscribe or hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye now.